What's up guys, it's David and today I'm reviewing Danny Brown's new album, Atrocity Exhibition. Danny Brown is one of my favorite new school rappers. Actually, he's probably my second favorite just after Kendrick. So of course I was super excited to hear this album, even more so because the singles were amazing. And let me just say right off the top, I was not let down by this at all. The album kicks off with the song Downward Spiral, which has this kooky psych rock inspired instrumentation. It has these very twangy guitar chords and some really off-kilter drums. It does not sound like a hip-hop beat at all, but Danny raps on it perfectly. And lyrically, this track sets the tone for the rest of the album. Because this whole album basically is a downward spiral, you're basically following Danny into a rabbit hole of sex and drugs and partying, and how fucked up his life has gotten since he's been famous. On Tell Me What I Don't Know, we get this production that's a cool mix of guitar and synthesizers. And on this track, Danny's telling a story about a friend who got killed when he was younger. And on this song, Danny isn't rapping in his usual high-pitched voice, he's rapping in a more monotone voice, which fits the depressing tone of the song really well. Rolling Stone has a catchy guitar lead with this great underlying synth melody that pairs up great with the guitar. On this track, Danny continues to tell us how messed up his life is, and how the further he goes down this road, the less likely it is that he'll ever come back from it. And this track has Petite Noir on the hook with some really great atmospheric vocals. The song really though is produced by Black Milk, and it has a really straightforward and hard-hitting beat with a xylophone or glockenspiel type of lead, and it has these huge boom-bap drums and some very dark, ominous piano keys. And this beat is perfect for what the track is because it's a great beat and it's very memorable, but it's not too crazy or attention-grabbing, so it puts the spotlight on the rappers, which is exactly the type of production you should have for a posse track like this. And let me just say, holy shit, everyone on this track absolutely snapped. I gotta say though, if I had to choose one verse as the best, and I think a lot of people agree with me on this, Earl absolutely killed this track. Almost every single line is a quotable, and Earl actually sounded really aggressive on this track. I mean, I always like Earl as a rapper, but usually he has a more dry, monotone delivery, but on this track he brought a ton of energy, and I've never heard anything like this from Earl, but it sounded great. I love that line he has where he says, "I just broke up with my bitch cause we ain't argue enough." And of course, that finishing line for him, "I'm at your house like, why you got your couch on my chucks." Everyone on here had a great verse, but I gotta give the biggest props to Earl. The next song, Lost, has a really kooky, choppy, vocal sample-led production that is so off-kilter and so out of whack. I don't know how Danny managed to find a pocket and actually ride this beat, but the fact that he did shows you just how talented of an MC he really is. This one just finds Danny rapping about selling drugs, and I like the references to Tarantino and Spielberg at the start of each of his verses. Now the next song, Ain't It Funny? This is one of the craziest songs I've ever heard, I think, in my entire life. The production is just a barrage of honky, screeching horn sounds that somehow all come together to actually form a cohesive beat. And the manic energy of this production perfectly matches what Danny is doing on this song. Danny is basically rapping about how his life is just a blur of drugs, sex, money. He even raps on here that he knows he probably needs rehab, but he's too far gone for this shit. And his delivery on here is even more crazy and more energetic than usual. It's a crazy song, also kind of depressing if you listen to what he's saying, kind of like all the songs on this album, but it's a fantastic song nonetheless. The song White Lines is very upbeat, but yet it has a very demonic feel to it. And on this track, Danny's rapping is syncing up to the lead keyboard melody. And as you could probably tell from the title, this is him rapping about cocaine. But just like on the rest of this album when he talks about drugs, it is no way glorifying doing it. It's almost like he's saying it in a cautionary way. Like on this track, he's acknowledging that this can kill him and it probably will. But he's so far gone that that doesn't matter to him and he's gonna keep doing it anyways. Pneumonia is just a dark, gritty banger. Danny brings a high energy to this song. And I love the really machine-like industrial drums on this track. And it's also kind of unconventional because at the end of every verse there's a build-up like there's about to be a huge explosion on the chorus, but every time after the build-up it just drops back down so that there is no payoff, but I think that works really well for the song. Dance in the Water has this crazy tribal influence production with this really groovy bass line and its weird zingy percussion noises, and some people might be turned off by this track because of its sort of lack of verses, but when listening to it in the context of the album it actually makes perfect sense, because Danny's basically saying that in his life he does all the stuff that's probably bad for him but he doesn't feel the consequences. He dances in the water but he doesn't get wet. The track When It Rained I did a track review for when it first came out, and I loved it then, but the more I listen to it, the more I love it. I love the dark, murky synthesizer, I love the pulsating rhythm of this track, and when those drums kick in the chorus, this song gets crazy. Just like most of this album, this is unlike any hip-hop track I've really ever heard, and lyrically Danny is rapping about how dark and broken his city is, and basically saying how it's always cloudy there, it's always raining, it's always gloomy. Today has a very jittery, choppy beat, and the way Danny flows on this song is crazy to me. the way he's just kind of popping in and out of the pocket. If you showed me this beat with no one rapping on it, and I had to imagine how someone would rap on it, I never would have thought of what Danny did. He seriously impresses me on this album when it comes to his flows and the variety of them that he uses. Get High has a very spacey, ethereal instrumental with these very smooth, wavy vocal samples. It's such a laid-back track and kind of a big transition from everything else on the record, but it's placed perfectly on the album. Danny is rapping about how if there's a ton of problems in your life, if your rent is due, your car just broke down, your girlfriend just broke up with you, you just got fired, that you can just smoke weed and you'll forget all about it. But the way he frames the song, he's basically saying, yes, smoking weed will take your mind off of it for a few hours, but in the grand scheme of things, those problems are still there and your life is still a mess. The closing track, Hell For It, perfectly wraps up what this album is. On this song, Danny's telling us that he's living this life so we don't have to. He's saying that we can look at his life and the path he took so we don't have to go down that way. And that this whole album was basically a cautionary tale of what life can become if you follow the path he went down. At the end of the day, I absolutely loved this album. The production was unlike anything I've ever heard on a hip-hop record. It is completely unique and stands out from everything I've heard this year. And lyrically, people rap about drugs and sex all the time in hip-hop. Danny does it himself on his previous records, but I've never heard it done like this. He doesn't glorify it, he doesn't even sound like he's happy about it. He basically just took us with him on his downward spiral of his messed up life. I have to say this is my favorite album of the year so far, and I give this album a 4.75 out of 5. The only reason really that I don't give it a perfect score is because when I think about other albums in the past few years that I would give a 5 out of 5, like To Pimp a Butterfly, The Powers That Be, and Run the Jewels 2, it doesn't quite get to the level of those for me, but nonetheless it's a fantastic album. I've been playing the shit out of it and I will continue to do so. But anyways, what did you guys think of this album? Leave your thoughts down in the comment section below, and thank you guys for watching. I'll see you next time.